Hello and welcome to the Ultra Films YouTube channel. My name is Dylan, and today we're going to be talking about episode 7 of Stranger Things, the Massacre at Hawkins Lab. In this episode we're going to kind of do it the same way we have for the last few, where we're going to go from one set of people, do their whole story in that episode, and then go to another set. In this episode we're doing Hopper and Joyce first, then we're going to do the kids at Hawkins, where it's the ones that are in the Upside Down, and then the ones that are not in the Upside Down, and then we're going to finish off with the 11 story, the big chunk of the episode that you really get all the good information from. So we're just gonna kind of jump on in, and in this episode we see Hopper and Enzo, or Antonov, share their family stories, and Hopper's kind of talking about how he really hopes that Elle is safe, and that he's really reminiscing about how she doesn't want to have anything to do with him, and how he was the exact same way at her age. And so he started smiling about this, and Enzo ended up telling the same kind of stories about his kid, and how he really hopes that his kid is safe. And as this kind of is happening, Murray and Joyce are driving into the prison. They had found a van, and they have Yuri kind of in the back of the van dressed up as Murray, and he's kind of trying to get the attention of the guards to tell the guards that Murray is not who he says he is, but he just ends up looking like a crazy person in the back of the van that doesn't want to be caught. So they're able to drive into the prison, and then as they're kind of in the prison, Murray is practicing meeting the warden, and he keeps kind of pulling the gun out and trying to, how about this, kind of trying to be intimidating, and he drops the gun a couple times, and Joyce goes, "Will you stop that?" And so Murray's like, "I gotta practice, I gotta make sure that it's believable." And the warden comes in and starts talking about how he's heard of Yuri, and there's a tense moment where he's like, "I heard Yuri was a kind of a crazy person," and it kind of got Murray a little puckered butt cheeks kind of steel, and then the warden's like, "And you're completely you're off your rocker," kind of deal. And so they end up being able to convince the Russian warden that they are who they say they are, and Yuri is still all gagged up, looking like Murray. And he invites them to go to see Hopper's location, since they were he was interval to keeping Hopper where he's supposed to be in the prison. And it shows the fighting pit of the incoming fight, and a little bit before that we actually see Hopper pull off a little bit of paper cloth off of his inside of his jacket and stuck it into his pocket. So then as this is kind of happening, they bring the prisoners out, and Enzo tells all the Russian prisoners to remember the plan, there's a beast coming, stick together, that kind of stuff. And so as the guards throw the keys at Enzo, and or at least the prisoner group, Enzo runs and grabs him, and he runs in to go to the weapons locker, and he throws Hopper a spear, which then Hopper pulls out his cloth wrap that he had torn off of his jacket and wraps it around the spear a couple times. And then like starts moving into the fighting position as the doors of the Demogorgon's cage are opening. And so as Hopper's like kind of moving into position, he pours a really high alcohol content alcohol onto the cloth and pulls out a lighter to try to light it. And he's tries to do this a couple times, and he's really struggling getting the lighter to light, and trying to play up that it's like out of oil. And so he's struggling. The Demogorgon comes out and he launches a couple people up against the walls and ends up like just killing them outright, like right away. And Hopper's finally able to get the lighter going, and he lights the spear on fire, and he starts to kind of keep the Demogorgon at bay with it because they don't like fire. And so the Demogorgon kind of runs away from him as Hopper and Enzo kind of run off to the cage that he came out of. And the Demogorgon like bites a dude's head and just kind of like mauls it, killing the dude like instantly. And once it runs out of people, it turns back to Enzo and Hopper, and Enzo's trying to pry open the door with a pickaxe, and he isn't able to get to it. At this point, Murray had pulled his gun on the warden and told the warden if he doesn't open up the doors so Hopper can get out, that he's going to shoot him, and drags him into the control room. And in the control room, the warden says, "Don't do this," or tells his subordinate that's also in the control room, if he listens to this crazy American, then the whole prison is going to be killed, essentially. And so the Russian officer that's at the control board decides that he's not going to do what Murray is trying to tell him to do, and instead just says, "No, you can do whatever you want. Like, I'm not going to condemn my fellow Russian men to death." So Murray's just kind of like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to knock you out. And he like pulls off his karate moves and starts knocking everybody out, looking like a super spy. And I think that's going to be probably where we see Murray's character go, potentially in the 5th season, where the Russians think he's a super spy or like a secret agent or something, when in reality he's not. He's just a dude that learned Russian and is taking karate lessons and finally became a black belt and is finally able to be using what he learned against people who don't know karate. But Joyce ends up just kind of messing with all sorts of buttons and gets the doors open for Hopper to enter into the cage that the Demogorgon had went into, as he's still kind of like trying to fight off the Demogorgon. And as he like steps in, she re-hits the button again, closing the door down. And as the door is closing, Hopper takes the spear and chucks it at the Demogorgon, and it like goes straight into its face as the doors successfully close, saving Hopper and Enzo. And the nice moment of the episode is when they finally open up the second set of doors. Hopper is finally able to reunite with Joyce and Murray, and gives them a nice big hug. So then I really liked that whole portion of that. One of the big bullet points that I was thinking for this episode, there's kind of like 4 is one of these big bullet point is that Hopper is resourceful and will be able to basically do get it out of any situation that he puts his mind to, and we've kind of like seen that throughout the whole show in general, like every season. Anything that Hopper really puts his mind to, he gets done. But we're gonna move on to the everybody in the Hawkins side of things. And so we're going to start with the Upside Down group, and then we're just going to kind of move back and forth because that's kind of how they do it, and their stories are intertwined really well. So we start with Steve. This is the opening sequence of the episode, where he's getting mauled by the demo bats, or what I called them in the last review episode, the Sturges. And he's getting mauled, and he's trying to knock him off, but he's not able to fight back anymore. So Nancy and Robin and Eddie finally show up and engage and start attacking these the demi bats. And Nancy and Robin's were like the first one to hop in, and Robin kicks one off as Nancy steps on it and starts like beating it with an oar, and Robin ends up trying to do the same thing, but starts beating it with a flashlight. And Eddie is kind of sitting off into the background, and Eddie ends up does get into the fights, but he's not fighting as hard as the other ones do. And I believe he also has an oar. And so they finally fight these demo bats off of Steve. And he gets up, and they're like, all right, well, I guess maybe it's time to get back. And as soon as they try to get back, more demo bats come flying in to guard the water gate. That is what Dustin ended up calling it. But they end up surrounding the water gate to protect it, to make it to where Steve and Nancy, Robin, and Eddie can't get out or make it back through. And then so more demo bats start flying in, and Nancy goes, we gotta run into the forest. And then that's kind of where we move into the kids that are at the Wheeler house, and it's Max, Lucas, and Dustin, and they're sitting on the couch, and they're getting interrogated or questioned by the police, and they're trying to do their best to collaborate their stories on the fly, but for the most part they're doing a terrible job. Max is trying to say one thing, and Dustin will jump in and say the complete opposite, and so then the police officers finally get upset enough and says, all right, well, we're gonna split you up, and we're gonna take Max first off. During the kind of interrogations, Lucas's sister Erica, she jumps in and she's like, they're definitely lying, can you not see it? And so this kind of starts the big fight between the parents and the police and the kids, and that's when they decide that they're going to take the kids off and question them one-on-one, taking Max first, of course. Then we get back into the Upside Down, and they are kind of walking through the forest, and they take shelter at Skull Rock, where Steve is not doing well. He's got the bites on his torso, and he almost ends up falling down, and Robin starts panicking, thinking that he potentially maybe has rabies. And at this point, after Steve kind of falls down, or almost falls down, Nancy rips off part of her shirt and starts wrapping it around Steve to kind of give him a makeshift wrap, or tourniquet kind of style thing, just to keep pressure on the wound so he doesn't bleed through quite as bad. And they kind of have this interesting moment where they are looking into each other's eyes, and Steve says thanks, and Nancy's like, yeah, she clearly still has feelings for him, or maybe maybe not clearly, but she's confused on where her feelings are lying. And Steve definitely still has feelings for her. I think it's more that Nancy is just confused because she hasn't seen Jonathan in so long, and like the feelings that she had for Steve and he's there are like starting to kind of come back. But they kind of start walking through, and as they're kind of walking, Nancy suggests, or I guess they don't start walking yet, but Nancy suggests that they find guns. And then so they're like, well, we should go down to the police station. Or not Nancy, Robin decides that they should get guns at the police station, like maybe grenades and that kind of stuff. And Nancy's like, well, how about we just go to my house to get guns instead? Because she has 2 guns at her house. And it's easier to get to her house than it is to go all the way downtown to the police station. And during their travels, Eddie catches up with Steve and kind of is like, hey man, like, I see the way that she like looks at you, and I don't know what happened between you, but like there's something there. You need to like get that back. And he also kind of says that he's jealous because Dustin admires him so much, and that Steve is kind of like a hero, and he's trying to say that he's like no hero outside of D&D. Like he has learned upon himself that he's absolutely no hero. Like the first sign of trouble and he runs away. And then so they kind of have an earthquake that happens, and they get really shaken up, and they gotta try to get to the house as fast as possible. And they kind of exit the woods, and they see Nancy's house, and it goes into the other kids on the not upside down side, where Dustin is trying to get in contact with the guys that are in the group that is in the upside down. And he's in the bathroom, and he pulls out his mega walkie-talkie, and he's trying to get in contact, and with no help. Presumably Lucas is trying to get some form of information from somebody else, like maybe making some phone calls, but isn't successful either. So Dustin exits the bathroom and starts talking about like where they could be, and Erica kind of comes in and threatens them to like threatens Lucas to tell her what's going on, or else she's going to tell Dustin what's under his bed. I'm assuming that is just like porn mags, which isn't super terrible, but like they make it seem like it's a big deal. And so then Dustin starts talking about like how the portals are created, and like how Elle created one, and then the Russians created another, and how there could be different portals in the like the under or the Watergate portal. And Erica goes, well, why would the Russians make why would they make a portal in the lake? And Dustin's like, well, they didn't make a lake, but maybe Vecna did. And then so he kind of makes the connection between the way that Vecna kills his victims being like a mental powerful connection, and by doing so it opens a new gate from the upside down into the world. And as he's kind of explaining this, the group that is in the upside down walks into the Wheeler house, but they're in the upside down in the Wheeler house, and like Steve hears Dustin echoing through the entire house, and he starts kind of yelling out to Dustin, like trying to get Dustin's attention, but because they're in the upside down, they can't Dustin can't hear them, but they can hear him, which is kind of a weird, like maybe like resonance kind of thing. But while Steve is kind of doing this, the other group, or the other 3 that are in that group, go up to Nancy's room to try to find the guns, which then they're in there, she's kind of searching around, and she realized that the upside down is stuck in 1983. It's not aging at all. which is really quite interesting considering that, like, Vecna is stuck in 1983. So then, like, what does his perceived time feel like? It's interesting. I'd like to kind of hear more about that from the directors, because they have been saying, like, a few things like that, or at least, like, expanding upon some of the questions that people have had. But they're stuck in 1983 in November 6th in the Upside Down, which is the exact day that Elle had opened the gate, the first gate. And so they finally hear Steve yelling for Dustin downstairs and kind of come running. And they find a way to communicate, because Nancy's like, wait, well, when Will was in the Upside Down, he talked to Joyce and he used lights. So they start trying to flick on lights, touch lamps, that kind of stuff. And they finally see the hanging chandelier over the table. And Eddie's like, well, I can do SOS and Morse code. And so they start doing SOS, and it goes back into Dustin explaining all of the stuff and how he thinks that all of the gates are connected, where the other gates would be at, and that kind of stuff. As Erica's like trying to like listen to him, but she notices the flickering lights and alerts Dustin and Lucas, and Dustin goes SOS, and he's like, hey, remember when I said the other group weren't stupid enough to go into the Upside Down? Well, I underestimated them. And so they realize that the other group is in the Upside Down, and they take the night bright that Nancy's little sister has, and they run up into Nancy's room. And it's a kind of cool scene from there where Dustin is talking to them through the void, essentially. And they are using the night bright to talk to the group through spelling out letters on it. And they communicate saying that they're stuck, that the Watergate is guarded, so on and so forth. And they come up with a plan that they should meet at Eddie's trailer, because if Dustin's theory is correct, there should be a portal in Eddie's trailer, which we all know there is one forming. So they get done with all this, and Dustin runs downstairs right as Max is done getting interrogated by the cops, and Dustin like ushers her up, and she comes up as the cops and the parents are talking again. And they rush up and they exit out Nancy's bedroom window to go get some bikes and start heading off into Eddie's trailer. At the same time, the other group finds bikes as well in the Upside Down and starts heading into Nancy's trailer. Or not Nancy's, Eddie's trailer. And then the cops realize that they're on their, like, they escaped because they sent one of the guys up to collect the next kid so they can interrogate the next kid. Erica ends up stabbing one of the tires for the cops so they couldn't get followed. And then each group is riding the bikes to the trailer. But the group in the Upside Down passes by a lamppost that has one of the demi-bats on it, or demo-bats. And it alerts Vecna that what the kids are doing in the Upside Down. And then so he has, he knows where they're heading. And so each group gets to the Upside Down, and as the group that's in the Upside Down is looking at the portal, they see like a stick they see something like raking across the portal, and it finally opens up, and they are looking up at Dustin and the other group looking down onto them, but they're looking up it's kind of a cool like scene, but it kind of like leaves you like kind of cerebrally uh, like dizzy, because the way that the screen like flip flops. Dustin then uses like an idea that he has to throw a rope up into the portal, bed sheets into the portal, and then they push Eddie's bed underneath the portal, and it's kind of cool. It's a what thing that happens? It's like the bed sheets that they use that they turn into a rope dangle down from the portal, and then they from each side. So because of the way that the gravity works on each side, it has no way to collapse on itself. So they start climbing the rope, or the kids in the upside down start climbing the ropes, and then flipping onto the bed mattress that is in the trailer on the normal side. And so as this is happening, Robin goes through, Eddie goes through, and then Nancy's about to go through. And Nancy ends up getting stuck into Vecna's curse. And she finds herself in the pool that Barb had been killed in the first season, I believe it was. Yeah, it should be in the first season. And Vecna is trying to say, like, hey, like, do you remember how you killed Nancy because you forgot about her and started hooking up with Steve? Well, I don't forget anybody that I kill. And ends up explaining like his whole backstory to Nancy. And as she like kind of crawls out of the pool, she finds herself in Vecna's actual lair, the broken house with the clock floating, and she's on the stairway. And he explains how he is Henry Creel, Victor Creel's son, that he has like psychic powers. Everybody thought he had like some kind of condition, where it just turned out that he just felt like he was smarter and better than everybody, and that like he needs to heal the human race. And he found like a group of spiders that were like inside of his family's pool, or not pool, bathroom, and like the heating vents. And so like his dad thought there was like a demon that was like affecting the house, but his mom like somehow knew that it was him, so she had called a doctor to come and look at her son. Turns out it's Dr. Brenner, who was supposed to be the doctor that came to look at her son. And Henry was trying to get away from this, so he ended up killing his family because he didn't want to go with Dr. Brenner. And he kills his mom, then he kills his sister, and then in the process of trying to kill his dad, he kind of runs out of juice and passes out into a coma, waking his father up. And then so the father, doing like what any father would do, he like kind of runs over and makes sure that his son's okay. Presumably calls the cops, and then gets arrested for killing his family, because there's no way that he wasn't the one that killed the family. And it's at that point it's kind of revealed that he is the friendly orderly named Peter Ballard, or number one, as we find out later in the next portion. And this one, like the biggest bullet point is that Nancy is like the leader of the group. Like without her, they wouldn't really know where they're going or like have a plan. I'm sure somebody would kind of step up. Like Robin is pretty good at like stepping up and trying to do like a little bit of a leadership role, but she's more of like a support leader, where Nancy is like the super leader. Um, and that's like one of the big bullet points as well. The second bullet point for this little like section of this episode is that Dustin is the smartest character in the show. He connected like all of the dots on like the gates and how that happened and that kind of stuff. He even thought of like the weird gravitational pull of each side, saying like the rope should work this way, which is kind of cool. And it's kind of a tie-in to a Dungeons and Dragons spell called Rope Trick, where you open up a portal and the rope goes through it, and you can climb up and down the rope as much as you want, and you can go into the portal and hide out in the portal, and then reopen the portal and go down the rope, go back up. It's kind of cool. Not the most useful spell, but it's a cool spell. But the next little portion of the episode is the L portion, which is ultimately not the, in my experience, isn't the best portion of the show, but is probably the most important one. And then so we see 11 sitting at a table, and she's trying to use her powers to open up a can of Coke, or like crush a can of Coke or something, but it's not working. And Owen and Brenner are like watching her, and Owen is feeling terrible of what they've been doing to her, because she's not showing any signs of her powers coming back, and all he's seeing is a traumatized girl. And he's like, good for us, Brenner, like we're basically the bad guys. And so Brenner goes in and talks to 11 and tells her that like she has a mental block of the fear that happened, thinking that she was the one that killed everybody, and that her powers were the reason why everyone died. And he tells her that she needs to trust him again one more time, otherwise she'll never get her powers back, and was never going to be able to help the people in Hawkins. So then 11 finally is able to confront her fears, kind of, and she allows herself to go back into Nina one more time. And Brenner picks up the footage of what happened when the first gate was opened during the 1979 speeding up the process of Nina, where it was supposed to just be like each time she goes in, she kind of just like does another day to kind of unlock some of her potential, so she could relearn how to use her powers. But this time it's just like, well, it's sink or swim, essentially. So in this kind of thing, Brenner gathers all the children around and starts talking to them, or in this portion of the Nina project that she's in, Brenner gathers all the kids around, because the last time that we had seen them, number 2, 3, and 5, I believe it was, as well, or 2, 3, 4, and 5, I think, all ended up attacking 11 and giving her a concussion. So he brings them in, talks to them about rules, and that no one is above them. And Brenner like looks at all the children, and he identifies number 2 as one of the culprits for 11's concussion, and he brings him forward and puts like a shock collar on him, and he starts asking 2 questions about like what happened. Number 2 is like, well, she was lying, like nothing happened. And then so Brenner like turned up the dial on the shock collar, and ended up making number 2 convulse on the ground after a couple times of using the shock collar on him. And after this, Peter, the orderly, and the other test subjects are horrified at the thought, and after 2's punishment, 11 spends some time in the Rainbow Room, and notices that hostility given out by the other members in two's group, and they really want to just kind of like hurt her again. Is what it kind of is looking like. And 11 ends up playing chess with Peter, and Peter is like, hey, like at this time, use this card, and he like slides it underneath the table, and meet me in this room, like so on and so forth. And then so he gets up and leaves, and she kind of like goes off and starts doing other stuff. And at the certain time, she like goes over to a orderly, and she's like, hey, I have a headache, and so on and so forth. And so that guy tries to bring her to the nurse's office, and as she's like heading to the nurse's office, or as they're heading off to the nurse's office, he goes to the nurse's office where like 2 is getting worked on, and he's like, hey, she's got a headache, says the lights are hurting her. And then the nurse is like, who? And they turn around, and 11 is nowhere to be found. She has already gone and used the card to go down to the boiler room where Peter is waiting. And Peter's like, here, use this grate. You can get out using this. And 11's like, but you're too big, you can't come with me. And Peter's like, well, I can't leave. Like, remember what I said, like, everyone's a prisoner here, not just the kids, like it's everyone. And then he shows like the inhibitor device that's in his neck. It's also like a GPS, and so like if he were to leave, that Brenner would be able to find him anyways. And so 11 says, well, I can help you out, and she tries to repay his kindness by letting her, or having a way for her to escape by ripping the chip out of his neck. After doing so, some orderlies or guards come in and chase them through the halls. And as they kind of get back into the Hawkins laboratory proper, Peter realizes, like, can feel his powers coming back. And so the guards surround them and tell them to stand down. And Peter just ends up like killing all of them pretty easily. And he takes her into a side room and he's like, hey, stay here, don't go anywhere, I'll come back for you. And he reveals himself to be number 1. And so 11 at this point is like, oh, okay, yeah, like I'll stay here. And so Peter goes off, or number 1 goes off and starts massacring everyone in this building. And 11's trying to be calm and collected, and she finally starts hearing some screams of other people. And because of the scream, she gets her like kind of courage up, and she starts walking out, and she finally follows the screams into the rainbow room and sees that number 1 had killed literally like everyone. And he's just finished killing number 2 in the rainbow room when 11 walks in, and he's like, I told you to wait, I was gonna come back for you. And 11 gets scared and tries to run, and Peter, or number 1, like closes the doors on her and kind of explains like his whole like psychological, like, this is why I'm doing this, so on and so forth. Like, it's because the human race is a disease and we need to cure it. Like, and so 11 kind of like refuses him, and he starts using his powers on her. And as he's like trying to use his powers on her, like she's kind of fighting back a little bit. He overpowers her and like pulls her up into the air and starts trying to twist her body parts around the same way that he had been killing all of the kids when he's Vecna. So like when he killed Christy and all the other people. at this, like, Eleven remembers what he had told her about finding a sad memory that also makes her really upset. But then she also remembers the memory of her getting born, and I think that was like a symbiotic message of like her powers fully awakening. Because at this, her like legs are no longer twisting, and she finds herself back on the ground, and she uses her power on him and shoots him through the glass window, and then has all of his like inner organs start like basically when Thanos snaps people turn to dust, right? And this is how like the big mother gate is opened, is she shunts number one through the gate, and you see him kind of like flying through the upside down, spinning around, getting struck by lightning and all sorts of stuff. And that's kind of like where we leave that. We then see Owen and Brenner realizing that Eleven's powers are coming back at the same time, and that's where the episode basically ends, as we see that he was number one. He's got a branding on his Vecna arm of the number one, as like a vine kind of moves off to the side while he's talking to Nancy. And that's where this episode ends. The kind of big bullet point of this one is that Elle kind of gets her powers back, and like to I guess never really doubt yourself, kind of, because she had been doubting and doubting and doubting and doubting, and that's the kind of the reason why her powers weren't working, because if she was like wallowing in self-doubt. But we have episode 8 and 9 coming out on July 1st, so just a couple more days here from the filming of this. I think I said it last time, but I'm going to try to do my best to just watch them one at a time. So like I watch one, then I record, I watch another, so I record. That way I can have more of a theory craft, I guess. I mean, it's not really going to be a theory craft, because like if you guys stream this, like binge it, you'll know what's going on. But we will have a big theory episode coming out with a couple different people as well as myself, revealing the last episode and like where we want to see season 5 go. So look forward to that. Besides for that, let me know if you have any questions, if you want me to expand upon anything. Leave that stuff down in the comments, like and subscribe. I've been Dylan, and thank you for watching.